All right, Cursed here. We're looking at a Kambal Console of Allocation deck. This is by Kanidaj. Not sure how to pronounce that, but that's fine. So they say, using the cards I had in a binder and a couple of decks I hadn't touched in a while, I brewed a deck with Kambal. Not the most popular of Orzhov commanders, but for my playstyle, it's quite enjoyable. So I'd like to improve it a bit, so I wrote down the list, and I think I've adjusted the mana base, but I like advice on cards that can interact well with my gameplay, besides the obvious Esper Sentinel, tutors, etc. Thanks. Alright, so let's take a look. Kambal punishes your opponents for casting non-creature spells, so he's the kind of commander that just works for a generic, good, black-white build. Lucky for you, black-white is my favorite color combination, and I have a lot of experience here. So let's see what's around. So right away, there's a lot of powerful creatures here. And I notice that there's a bit of a sub-theme. Okay. There's a few cards that are here as a life gain sub-theme. And that seems like more of an opportunist, a bit of aristocrats, reanimate. Okay. Let's take a look at removal. Real nice. All right. All right. So looking at this, I'm going to say right off the bat, I really like this deck. I think it's a particularly strong deck. And I think our changes and my advice is going to be very straightforward and therefore very actionable. I feel like you're playing a lot of good stuff, white black mid range. And there's a few outliers of cards that don't go into there as well as others. And so, judging by your comment, which I'll go back to right now, where you say, you know, I look cards that can interact well in my game plan, and I assume that game plan, what you're referring to, is the life gain and the taxing from Kambal. So either we're going to make this more mid-range powerful, or we're going to lean towards life gain. And I think at this point, I'm going to cover both really fast. I think if you want to just make this deck mid-range powerful, we're just going to adjust. We don't need to put an Esper Sentinel. We don't need to go straight into like tutors and stuff. What we need to look at is cards that have their own theming that doesn't really fit here. So, for example, Corpse Knight, Elas Ilkor, Tithe Drinker, Marauding Blight Priest, Yahenni, Cliffhaven Vampire. These are all cards that fit either into a life gain style package or a aristocrats package. So pretty straightforwardly, if they are around and you want to just go mid range, you're gonna have to cut them. We'd probably cut lower quality cards. Cut of Profits isn't as strong as honestly sometimes like Phyrexian Arena and things like that. This can draw you a lot of cards, and I do really prefer cards that instantly draw cards, such as Read the Bones. But I think Cut of the Prophets is too much mana. Same with Damn the Wolf Pact. They're just too much mana to get the card draw that you desire. I wonder what our dear friend Dark Confidant is at right now. 14 bucks. I don't know what your budget is like, but going into Dark Confidant or Keen Duelist would be the other one, is a good direction to go into. Keen Duelist is much cheaper, but both of these are like Bob style effects, with Keen Duelist being a political one. They can get you repeated card draw at low parts of your curve. Additionally, I don't think it would hurt to grab, depending, we can grab Athalia, we can grab Leonin Arbiter, spell it, there you go. These cards are strong because they function well with Kambal, especially Thalia. You have a high amount of non-creatures, but you have a high amount of creatures as well. And Thalia tends to tax your opponents a lot harder than your own cards. So it's generally a positive addition. Read would be that. I think something you could benefit from as well would be oppression, which will cause whenever someone casts a spell, they have to discard a card, and which is unfortunately about $15. But once again, I'm not sure what your full budget is. Bottomless Pit is a lot more affordable at a few bucks, and this makes everyone discard per turn. I don't know what Liana of the Veil is at these days. $15 as well. Once again, very powerful in this kind of strategy. I would also think about getting cover. Yeah, I like that. Akroma's Will feels weird here because you just don't represent enough damage for it to be really, really good. Your creatures don't grow. You're whittling people down. Akroma's Will is really, really good as a one-shot attack. You don't want to use it defensively. You want to use it aggressively, and it's gonna be rare that you'll be able to defeat an opponent with it. Ink Shield's great. Ink Shield's fantastic in a deck like this. Otherwise, I really like it. It's really straightforward. Everything from now on is just improvements. So for your, like I said, grabbing Dark Confidant, grabbing Keen Duelist, if you can grab Necropotence fits really well here. Um, there's a few more black card draw effects that also damage you. Anything like that is the direction you want to go. You want to be spending the mana. Up here, these cards feel a little weak. It feels like Drana, Athreos, Sun Titan, and Elesh Norn are here because they are generically strong cards in white and black. And I know a moment ago I talked about how this is a mid-range style deck where you're just playing good cards in the colors. You are put 5 mana and above, you're pushing it. Elesh Norn is a really, really strong card. I would keep that. But the other three require quite an investment in order to do anything. Sun Titan's fine if you go into an Aristocrat's Shell, but otherwise it's just reanimating one or two cards from the graveyard, which isn't worth it as much as you would think. If your opponents have the same level kind of deck, well, it's going to be hard to resolve Sun Titan. You've got a lot of really strong cards. They probably have a lot of really strong cards. They got counter spells, removal. Sun Titan's going to be 6 mana for one trigger. And if you keep it, it's good, but you don't have ways to put your cards into the graveyard. You don't have graveyard tutors. Drana, similarly, is a Sarah Angel, basically. She's a 4/4 flyer, and then you have to pump a bunch of mana into her to make a targeted removal. Royal Assassin just does that, but better, albeit with tapped creatures. I don't think it's particularly worth it to play Drana here. Athreos as well requires your creatures to die, and requires several end steps for it to be worth it. I wouldn't play this either. This is just the top end feels a little strange for what you're doing. So that's the direction I would take to make this into a mid-range deck. If you wanted to go a different direction, and such as capitalizing on the life gain, you're going to have to go a little deeper. You're going to have to grab a lot more cards that benefit off of incidental life gain, a la Marauding Priest, or Markov Purifier. You're going to have to grab a lot more of those. And honestly, it's going to make your deck a little weaker, unfortunately. So your mileage will vary. What I'm going to say is there is often a strategy in these kind of commander decks where the strength of the non-creature spells often makes up for the weakness of the creature spells. So if you were to switch into a life gain kind of build, your deck would lose power, but it wouldn't lose power dramatically. If you wanted to switch into life gain and maintain your power, you basically have to remake the majority of your deck. So I really wouldn't recommend that. I would gauge for yourself how much you want to benefit off life gain effects, add in Soul Sisters and other such abilities, things that grow or deal damage when you gain life. You could go pretty far, but it's going to be up to you to see how far you want to go there. Let me see. Alternatively, because there are a few cards here, Ophiumancer, Yaheni, and Morbid Opportunist, point towards a more aristocrats build. Um, so really briefly, I'm going to say that's what I tend to go for. When I'm in white-black and I'm playing mid-range, my commander is Brina. I play Brina as my white-black mid-range commander. And yes, I do have the Esper Sentinels, and yes, I do have. I think you also have Smothering Tide. Yeah, that's the big one, honestly. Those cards, I find the best way to win quickly is to go for an aristocrat style combo. If you're familiar with Karmic Guide combos, use Karmic Guide and then you use, I always forget, I think we should be able to find it. Combo, Karmic Guide, and Revelark. Revelark. Best friends forever. Let me just borrow this. So Karmic Guide reanimates a creature when it comes into play. Revelark reanimates two creatures, one of them being Karmic Guide, when it leaves play. And then all you need is any Blood Artist effect to drain people. This is the other Blood Artist, but that's fine. Any Blood Artist effect, and then this, and then any Viserys Steer style sacrifice effect. With those four cards, you will instantly defeat all of your opponents. They can still interact with it. They can still remove one of those cards at the right time, but it's really hard to do so. And cards like Blood Artist, much like how you're using Corpse Knight as an incidental damage, Blood Artist effects do the same thing. As creatures die, because they're going to die in Commander, people are going to take damage. So if this were my deck, that's the direction I would go into. I'm not necessarily suggesting that. I'm suggesting that you need to figure out where to gauge that line. White Black's two really strong abilities together are taxing and aristocrat strategies. Life gain tends to go into those incidentally, so it's up to you how far you want to push that. Otherwise, straight up, this is a really nice deck. I really think you've done a good job here. Every adjustment I would say is just taking cards and making them better. Cut to Profits can be better. Downhill Pack can be better. If you're playing Mom, you should play Giver of Runes. Austere Command could be Farewell, or it could be Merciless Eviction. Um, you're playing both Path and Swords. That's fantastic. Chroma's Will could be a generic like an indestructible spell, and it would do a lot better. But Ink Shield is already the defensive spell that wins you the game. Yeah. All right. This is a great deck. Thanks for letting me see it, because always happy to see these kind of decks. Thanks a lot. Hope this helped.